Hello, good afternoon, good, good morning, and good evening. I'm Dr. Bhawani Today, I have come with a new chapter. The title of the chapter is On Library. It is written by Oliver Sacks. It is put in grade 12, and students of grade 12 can get benefited from these slides. On Library is an essay written by Oliver Sacks. It deals with the praise of intellectual freedom, community, work, and discovery. The writer was born in the library of his parents, and it is his favorite room. All four walls of his room were covered by bookcases. It was his father's library. His father was a Hebrew scholar. The writer's parents had met at medical students' Epsom Society. His parents were young poets of his father's generation. His mother had a separate bookcase. There was a beautiful volume set of Shakespeare's books, John Milton's books of poetry, which his mother had gotten as school prizes. Medical books were kept in a special locked cabinet during his parents' surgery. He would be lost in reading those books all the time. Whenever he was late for lunch or dinner, he could be found with books in the library. Means he would be reading books in the library. There was Willis Den Public Library. He went many of the happiest hours in that library. His house was a 5-minute walk from the public library. From that public library, he got a real education in that public library. It was a self-education, learning himself from the library. It is like school education because it was sitting in class. School education means sitting in class, receiving instruction, and pieces of information seem to go in one ear and out by another ear. Means sitting in a school class in a passive way means listening from one ear and leaving or forgetting from another ear. School means to be passive, and he had to be active in the library. He learned for himself, and he learned what he wanted. He was not a good pupil, means good student, but he was a good learner. He was free to collect the books he wanted to read. He was free to look at the tens of thousands of books and roam from library to library. He had the quiet companionship of the other readers. When he became older, his reading was increasingly biased toward the sciences, mainly in astronomy and chemistry. He was 12 when he went to St. Paul's School, where he found the excellent general library. There were historical and political books. He had access to Oxford's two great university libraries, and those libraries were Radcliffe Science Library and Bodleian, which were wonderful libraries for him. The speaker loved Oxford at Queen's College. The magnificent library building itself had been designed by Christopher Wren. He read many more books in different libraries. He first came to New York City in 1965 when he found no place to space to read and write in the library. There was very narrow space, and he had to live in a chair, and there was no table to write. He studied Johnson. Many writers he studied Johnson, Hume, Alexander Pope, John Dryden, and their books. He found old books and new books and made friends with other readers, especially like minded people. He made friends with like minded people. He went to the Albert Einstein College of Medicine, which had enough space for the readers, and there in the library, he loved that library of Albert Einstein College. The readers were sharing books and enjoyed using the libraries. But a shift was occurring in 1919, and he had to face difficulty in it. He had the habit of visiting the library and sitting at a table with a mountain of books in front of him. But the students ignored the bookshelves, and what they needed were their computers. From 1990, the writer had no idea of use the e-library and digitalized library because he does not use computer. Use is left there. He does not use computer, and he is deeply saddened by the loss of books. Thus the writer has brought the history of the library, its value, significance, habit of learning, using the library in life, and self-learning system. It has focused on effective learning rather than going to school and spending time passively. In short, the writer himself was born in the room where there were many books, and those books were his parents' books, and those books were the library for him. From the time of his birth, he was found within the library himself, and he read different books, different books that he liked, whatever he liked. And generally, people love the books, like the books to read if they are left to read whatever they like. But when the people go in a school and they are forced to learn curriculum of certain school or university, they do not feel any comfortable, and they feel it as if it is a forced education, and they are not free to learn. And free learning means self-learning. Self-learning means just almost ambitious and motivating, and that gives a kind of different feels, different interest for the readers. So there was a public library 5-minute walk from his home, and he started going there, started learning himself, and he liked what to read the books. He selected the books whatever his interest was, his desire was, and he knew the value and importance of reading the books, self-help in the library. And he realized that school was nothing. It was just a place for sitting. It was being passive. It was getting information and instruction directly from the teachers. And it was not interesting and not okay, fascinating for him. That's why he thought it was better to learn to read whatever the students, whatever the people like to study, right? There should be freedom of reading, freedom of just visiting. He visited different places. He visited library to library. He found different libraries, and in those libraries, he just realized some of the libraries were very narrow. New York's library was very narrow. He could not even sit down. He could not get any place to write, even the table. And then he had to face those sort of problems. He visited other libraries, Queen's libraries, Albert Einstein's libraries, and different libraries he visited, and he made different friends. In the library, people do not talk, but they whisper and they become friends. And making friends in library means people who read, only the readers make friends with other readers, and they change the books, old books, new books, different books. He went on reading different writers, different writers' books, Alexander Pope, John Milton, Shakespeare's book, and then even John Dryden, right? Hume, number of books he went and reading, and he had different taste of reading. And he realized that self-education, self-learning in the library means getting itself better knowledge than what it is given from the educational institutions, because there is better interest. Whenever he was not found in the kitchen, in the lunch time, in the dinner time, and at that time, he was nowhere but only in the library. He used to be reading in the library. So library became a kind of his hobby, his lifeblood, his just most important place to go and spend the time. He enjoyed the library more than anything else. But when the library system changed, when the books came in digitalized form, when e-library got started from 1990, and he found himself difficult to use the libraries, and he was very sad. He was unhappy because he did not use computer, and he even does not use computer, and all the students started using digitalized e-library, but he was not habituated to use that digitalized and e-library system, and because of this he became sad. But he comes to the point that just to get better knowledge and to motivate oneself, the boundary, the limitation, the force, the course cannot make the students educated or intellectual one. And new discovery and intellectuality comes through the choice of reading. If a person likes to read certain books, he or she never stops reading if the books are of his or her liking. Right? So the freedom of using the text and learning the book means that is a kind of passion of the readers. So, passion of reading must be developed in people by using e-library now. This is the new modern world where we do not have to visit library. In the past, it was compulsory. Now, the time has changed. Now, the present library is in a laptop. It is in a computer. It is in the just e-library. So people can get all the ideas of the world through the help of e-library, through the help of Google, through the help of see other systems where e-library, digitalized library have been facilitated to the world readers. So it is made it quite easier for those technically literate people. But for those who are technically illiterate to use a computer and other devices for learning and gaining knowledge and intellectuality, it is difficult for them and they become very sad. The writer has become sad in this use of e-digitalized or e-library system. This is what the idea of they say. You can use some of these slides and make your ideas better to understand, easy to understand. Thank you. It becomes useful if you read well with the help of these points and whatever I have spoken.